Good afternoon. Welcome to MSV Movie Mania. I'm your host, Alex Plumacher.
I'm your host, Ricky Costa, and thank you for showing up to episode 2.
Ricky, what movies are we going over today?
Today we'll be going over both Avengers movies, starting with the first film, the massive superhero epic, Marvel's The Avengers. When the rogue demigod Loki, played by Tom Hiddleston, threatens Earth with an army and a powerful, game-changing weapon, S.H.I.E.L.D. director Nick Fury, played by Samuel L. Jackson, must gather together a team of extraordinary heroes. Iron Man, played by Robert Downey Jr., Captain America, played by Chris Evans, the Hulk, played by Mark Ruffalo, Thor, played by Chris Hemsworth, Black Widow, played by Scarlett Johansson, and Hawkeye, played by Jeremy Renner. Bringing together characters from the films Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, and Captain America, the First Avenger, Marvel's The Avengers was released on May 4th, 2012. The film received extremely positive reviews from critics, scoring a 93 on Rotten Tomatoes, and grossed over $1.5 billion worldwide. Alex, what did you think of Marvel's The Avengers?
Well, I've told you this since I first watched it
3 years ago.
3 years ago. I enjoyed it.
Oh,
It
good.
was fun to watch. The plot bothered me, as always.
Okay, elaborate on that.
So basically, I feel like they just recycled Loki.
Yes, Loki is returning from Thor, although he's a lot crazier this time.
Yeah, but it's a recycled bad guy. Still angry with Thor. He's gonna attack the whole Earth just to get back at Thor because he's upset at him because they're not really brothers.
Well, I think, yeah, you're right. The premise is Loki grew up being denied the thrones. Now he's taking Earth as recompense, as Thor said, for not being able to be king of Asgard. But yes, overall it's right.
Your idea on the plot?
I thought the plot was good. When I first heard of it, saw a trailer, I was a little I wasn't sure why they would bring back Loki instead of introducing someone else. But I enjoyed the plot. They brought everyone together, but the thing that I almost wasn't expecting was that they don't get along at first. So much they almost get into a physical fight, and that really interested me. And I thought overall the plot was good. I thought it had a good story. And in addition to that, the film had some really great dialogue from writer-director Joss Whedon.
So, I'll be honest, I haven't really followed the comic books at all. I haven't read any comic books. I haven't really seen all the, I've seen all the Phase 1 movies leading up to the Avengers.
Yeah. I haven't read the comic books either. I'm just a fan.
But what I did like is, even without the comic books or anything, all those movies combined really brought the story together and made the Avengers work.
Yes,
which I think actually surprised a lot of people because that was a big risk putting all of those characters together.
Yes, I think that the plot was. I think you don't need to know the comic books. Like I don't know the comic books. I think, but knowing the movie, I think because one of the cool things is there's never been a film like this before in which 5 different movies, 4 different franchises come together, and yes, I think establishing what they did in the previous Phase 1 films, they did a really great job, I felt. What didn't you like about the movie? Because I know you've had some complaints over the years.
What didn't I like? My biggest complaint would be, what was it, the helicarrier?
The helicarrier, the giant flying aircraft carrier.
Yeah. I like what CinemaSin said, the helicarrier is hella stupid. It doesn't make any sense to me. And then when Hawkeye attacks, along with...
Hawkeye becomes brainwashed.
Yeah, Hawkeye gets brainwashed in the beginning, and then when he attacks the helicarrier with... I can't remember the corporation behind it.
I don't even know, Loki's men.
Just Loki's bad guys. When he
Yeah,
attacks
yeah,
with
henchmen.
them, and he uses one arrow that produces a Michael Bay 2.0 explosion.
It takes down one of the whole engines. So it's like
Takes down a whole engine, and that just sets off a 30-minute event of either Avengers fighting each other or trying to repair a ship. The ship
Yeah.
angle I like.
Yeah. The ship angle, that impressed me. That the the second act of the film wasn't just about them fighting Loki and the brainwashed Hawkeye. It was about fixing his ship, which impressed me because I usually don't do that stuff in action movies. But yes, and I remember you having an objection to the one scene when he fires the specific.
When they get to the control bridge and he shoots an arrow that hacks the system into a tiny little port on a computer. Just happens to fit his arrow.
He has an arrow for everything.
That is my least favorite shot of the entire scene.
Yeah.
Of the entire movie.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, there were a few parts of the plot that were not well explained, such as why Hulk wasn't able to control his powers in the middle, which I think there's an explanation in there somewhere, but it's very unclear. And then later, why Thor briefly but can't pick up his hammer, and it's...
Yeah, I think that might be a shot for more of the comic book fans.
All
it's
right.
probably referenced in there somewhere.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. But...
And then later on, towards the final fight, you got all the Avengers going towards Manhattan to fight Loki before he gets all the
portal and stuff.
The portal to open and all the aliens to come through.
Okay, I like the I thought the final battle was great. I think the thing is with these films, it's we've been building up to the Avengers for 5 movies, and now this is like the big payoff. And I think the final battle was such a nice payoff. Seeing the 6 of them work together, I think it was really, really well done. It was fun. It was funny. It was epic. The final battle. They give every character something to do, and I absolutely love the final battle.
Here's my problem with it.
What?
Because this is my job. I have to upset you.
Yeah, you do.
When the Hulk shows up again, out of nowhere.
No, okay. Well, he knew because he saw the screen back in the control room. He saw the lab. He saw the screen. He saw the scepter was in New York or something like that. Yeah, but he found them eventually.
Yeah, but he comes back and he's just like, oh, how convenient. Guys, don't worry. I'm always mad. I can control my power now.
I don't know what that's about.
More importantly, if he could control his power, why did he take the time to come in to Manhattan during an alien invasion slowly on a motorcycle instead of just turning into the Hulk and running 30 miles an hour?
I don't know. What did you like about the movie, though?
What did I like? I liked the chemistry between all the characters.
The
fact that worked for the first time in Hollywood amazed me.
Yeah, I thought they did that really well because there's tension for a while. They don't get along right away. Yeah, I really enjoyed all the action scenes, from the opening car chase to that brilliantly choreographed fight between Black Widow and the hypnotized Hawkeye, but more importantly, all the big battle scenes. I thought they were very epic, many memorable moments, and I absolutely love the film. I think it's the best superhero movie ever.
Okay. What would you give it?
I'll give it a 10 out of 10.
That's the second movie in a row you've given a 10 out of 10.
I love movies.
Sure.
I love movies. Absolutely.
All right. I'm going to give it a 8 out of 10.
Okay, that averages to a 9 out of 10. Just like how last week Furious 7 averaged 8.5 out of 10. So, which is very good, and average a 9 for Marvel's The Avengers. That's great. So,
so 9 out of 10, must see.
All right, so yep, that's about it for Marvel's The Avengers. We'll be back with the review for Avengers Age of Ultron after this commercial break. When Tony Stark / Iron Man secretly creates Ultron, played by James Spader, a robot intended to bring world peace, things soon get out of hand when Ultron develops a mind of his own and gathers a massive robot army. Now, Stark and the Avengers must call upon some old friends and new allies in order to stop Ultron from saving the planet the only way he knows how, wiping out the human race. Bring together storylines in the films Iron Man 3, Thor the Dark World, Captain America the Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Ant-Man. Avengers Age of Ultron was released on May 1st, 2015. The film received generally positive reviews from critics, scoring a 75 on Rotten Tomatoes, and grossed over $1.4 billion worldwide. Alex, what did you think of Avengers Age of Ultron?
I can sum it up in one word.
What?
Disappointed.
Okay, what disappointed you about it?
It felt too dragged out.
Okay, yeah.
It focused a lot more on the chemistry between each character, but it didn't have the same feel as the first one where it was edgy, it was fresh. It just seemed kind of like, hey, let's talk about some scenarios that could have probably been better movies.
Yeah, it was. It didn't have the same sense of purpose as the first one. Like, it was just sort of there. I remember one of the. I overall I love the movie, but let me just say I did have a few problems with it. One of the big ones was I think they spent a little too much time and effort setting up for the next Avengers, which is the two-part Infinity War film.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I feel like if they didn't really talk about Infinity War so much and dig into it, giving backstory in Ultron, it probably could have been an hour and a half film.
Yeah.
It focused, like, unlike the first one, which was just this one story about the Avengers.
Exactly.
Age of Ultron was, we're going to reference the next 2 movies that we already have planned.
4 movies. They reference Black Panther, Civil War, Thor 3, and they do have a whole subplot about Infinity War.
That's true. Okay, so, excuse me, 5 films, because Infinity War is part 1 and part 2.
Oh, true.
If they didn't reference all those films or give backstory, which probably could have been saved until
beginning of Infinity War,
the opening of each of those movies, that really took out of it because, I mean, at least for me, I haven't seen most of the Phase 2 standalone films. So I was kind of, I don't want to say lost, I could follow what was happening. I didn't understand the specifics of each thing. Like, I remember we had to pause and you had to tell me some of the backstory for each conversation a little bit.
Right. I mean, shield claps.
Yeah. And just another thing that bothered me about the film was they did this 20-minute segment where they just pulled a season 2 of The Walking Dead and we're just on a farm doing nothing.
That did remind me a lot of The Walking Dead. Talking a lot about the farm.
It gave a little bit of good backstory for Hawkeye, which I guess
that was nice.
They probably pushed for considering he wasn't in most of the first film.
That was the one problem with the first one. Hawkeye got very little character development, and they rectified that in this one. There's a very nice emotional moment between Black Widow and Hulk. But yeah, the farm part did drag a little bit. Yeah. And I agree with you about too much setup. Some of the stuff, like the setup for Black Panther and Thor 3, that was subtle. And even the Civil War stuff was like kind of in there nicely. But the Infinity War setup, it was too much. It was, because I think the problem is the Avengers, it was all leading up to this, and this is the big payoff. Now we have the Avengers 2, and this film is just more lead up to Infinity War, which I think even before the final battle, they talk about the Infinity Stones, and then it kind of scales back. Oh wait, we're supposed to deal with Ultron, and I think it does take you out. It's exciting, the setup, but it takes you out.
I think they handled the setup better earlier in the film.
Yeah, it was
like
more
when they had
subtle.
the Andy Serkis cameo for I guess the Black Panther film.
Yeah, that was a good cameo.
That was good. It was quick, short, nice little setup for a next film that everyone knows is coming out.
Right, right.
Once Vision showed up, it really went off track.
Yeah, when you have new Avengers being introduced at the 90-minute mark, I think you've got a little too much stuff going on in your film. Because I think Josh Whedon wanted more of a standalone film in the vein of, like, you know, Godfather Part 2 or Empire Strikes Back, but Marvel kind of pushed on him, you know, introduce all this setup, introduce Vision, and I think they should have learned from Guardians of the Galaxy and Winter Soldier that people like straight up movies better, but they introduced a little too much setup.
Yeah.
But overall, what did you enjoy about the film? Did any parts you liked?
I enjoyed the earlier action sequences.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, especially the one in South Africa.
With the Hulk?
With the Hulk versus the Hulkbuster.
That was fun. That was
great scene. Did not like the ending of it.
All right.
It had a lot of kind of cheap 9/11 imagery that really felt like a cheap pull on the heart.
Yeah, there was a lot of cheap, like, 9/11 imagery, like the building collapse, the cloud. It was unsettling, and you're right. I think that was a little uncalled for. And I remember, what did you think of the final battle?
Yeah, I had to bring that one up.
Yeah.
I thought it was very well put together, story and editing-wise. But the premise of it,
The Flying City?
the flying city that they're going to use as an asteroid, I thought was stupid.
It was stupid. I mean, it was cool. I think.
Plus, I mean, how
Sorry.
how long does this movie take place over? Like a week? And he builds this whole complex under the city that can lift up 10 miles of it.
Avengers, Week of Ultron. But, yeah, I like that they had the whole final battle being about saving people instead of just stopping the bad guys, which they're just trying to one-up DC after Man of Steel.
Where everyone died.
Yeah, 1,000 people died, he didn't care. But I enjoyed the final battle. I thought it was fun. There were good humor, character moments. There's one very good scene of, you know, Hawkeye gives a speech to Scarlet Witch.
That was good. That was funny too.
Yeah, the city's flying. I'm fighting an army of robots, bow and arrow. None of this makes sense.
Yeah.
But overall, I liked it. The James Spader stole the show as Ultron.
That is true. I liked his. I didn't like the way they designed Ultron. He looked too cartoonish in the face.
Yeah. But James Spader blew. I thought the character could be a little deeper. His motivations were unclear. Although,
if they didn't focus so much on Infinity War, maybe they could have developed that.
Yeah, but James Spader stole the show. He stole the movie. He went from menacing and angry to childlike in a second's notice. I love that. I was laughing so hard at half his lines, and I thought that was great. What out of 10, what would you give Avengers: Age of Ultron?
Out of 10, I'd give it a 6.
All right.
I was incredibly disappointed by this one.
Okay. Do you know what I'm going to give it?
Let me guess, Ricky, 10 out of 10.
I'm going to give it 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
I thought it was like about 90% as good as the first film, which is still really good.
Hint, if you give the last one a 10 out of 10, that would make it a 9 out of 10.
No, yeah, but I am still giving 10 out of 10 because in its own right, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really, I considered that, but I had really a lot of fun. It was epic at times. I really enjoyed Avengers: Age of Ultron.
So, 6 out of 10, 10 out of 10.
6 out of 10, I'll give 8 out of 10.
All right.
All right.
That is the first 2 Avengers films. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
Welcome back to episode 2 of MSV Movie Mania. Let's go to our news segment. Alex, have any news?
Just one little thing. Mad Max Fury Road is a contender for Film of the Year in the upcoming Oscars. It hasn't been nominated yet, but
Those
they
are
are.
in January nominations.
You know, Ricky, let me have my moment. Okay.
Okay, go on. This is
The
your
next
show.
Oscars.
Your show. Your
The
show.
next Oscars.
Yeah.
It hasn't been nominated yet, I think, but it is under consideration.
Yeah, that Mad Max Fury Road, great film, saw in theaters. It's being hailed as one of the best action movies, I think, of the last few decades. I think it got 98 in Rotten Tomatoes, which is unheard of for action movies, and I'll be very excited if it gets nominated for Best Picture.
Anything from you?
One thing I did find interesting, a week or two ago, we saw a release of the film Pan, which is a reboot of Peter Pan, or a prequel, and strangely enough, it bombed at the box office, which I think is a growing trend for reboots. We've got Fantastic Four this year. What else? Terminator Genesis, the Vacation movie, all reboots or spin-offs or whatever, and they...
I think the reboot setup worked for the past year or two.
Yeah, now
and people are really starting to get sick. They want something fresh.
Exactly. I think Pan is just another example of how people are not paying to see reboots in Hollywood. And I think it's good because we're getting a little too many reboots.
We're getting nothing but reboots.
Exactly. I'm excited that Hollywood's going to be phasing out of that soon.
You have a trailer for today, right?
Yeah, speaking of original films, it's a new movie coming out soon on November 20th called The Night Before. It's a comedy starring Seth Rogen, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Anthony Mackie, who actually plays the Falcon in Avengers: Age of Ultron.
For 5 minutes.
It's like 2 minutes. It's a comedy about 3 best friends who spent the last 14 years hanging out every night on Christmas Eve. Now with Seth Rogen having a kid on the way, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Anthony Mackie being a famous movie star, they decided to call it quits, have this be the last year. And it's about this one night these 3 old friends are spending together one last time. What do you think of it, Alex?
We watched the trailer just before we started the show. It looks pretty funny, actually.
Seth Rogen movies are always pretty funny.
Based on the interview, I'm still on a little bit of a Seth Rogen binge.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely excited for that one.
Yeah, The Interview, Neighbors, This Is the End, all great movies, and they're always raunchy. I think there's a few raunchy bits in this one.
I don't think we could do it on the show.
We can't say what it is because we'll get canceled, but no, The Night Before looks like a funny movie. All right, next week on our show, we will be doing the critically acclaimed Best Picture winner of last year's Oscars, Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance. That's the subtitle. And I've seen before. I think it's one of the best movies maybe I've ever seen. Maybe. Alex, you haven't seen it, right?
I have not.
But I think you're going to enjoy this one. I think
I've heard it's pretty good. I'll be quiet when we watch it.
There's less action scenes in the Avengers, so it's a weird superhero movie. But yes, great movie. Looking forward to seeing it again. What else are we doing next week?
Second film we're reviewing next week is the not so critically acclaimed Adam Sandler's Pixels.
Oh,
it came out last year.
Come on!
Surprise! I know you loved it in theaters. Basically,
what was that? July it came out?
That was August or July.
Yeah.
Basically, everyone went to go see it with loved it, but Ricky. He's not a big Adam Sandler fan, so
nope.
I'm gonna drop the ball on him with this one.
I'm seeing it out of memory. I'm not seeing that again.
Ooh, you're excited, I could tell.
All right, we're doing Pixels next week because...
Why not?
Why not?
All right.
That's about it for MSV Movie Mania.
All right,
Thanks for showing up for episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Sorry, I had to drop that reference.
All right. Until next week, I'm Alex Plumacher.
I'm Ricky Costa, and you stay classy, San Diego.